Hi, my name is Sophia Hall. I'm 16 years old and I live in Washington, D.C. I'm a junior at Holton Arms in Bethesda, Maryland, and I'm a poet. My writing has been recognized by the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards, the Library of Congress, Writopia Lab, Write the World, Worldwide Plays Festival, Ringling College, 16 Rivers Press, and more. I'm the school news editor of my school newspaper, Scribbler, and I'm the founding member and associate producer of the weekly satirical news show, Screen. I am passionate about foreign policy and international relations, and I'm the ambassador of the Harvard Undergraduate International Relations Scholars Program. I also love Model UN, and most recently, I went to the North Atlantic Invitational Model UN Conference, which was hosted by Georgetown University. I was recently announced to be the Arts and Social Justice Fellow at Woolly Mammoth Theater and Strathmore Arts Center, and I couldn't be more excited for that. I'm one of 8 fellows, and the program essentially helps us create a project that will present at Strathmore in July, and I'm so excited. It looks amazing. The program focuses on Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower. We'll be reading that work, discussing how effectively she addresses social justice issues through her novel, and then we will kind of mirror her through our own projects. I also successfully completed the social entrepreneurship program called Social Innovators at the University of Pennsylvania's Business School. I completed that in the summer of 2020, and essentially I learned about target markets and how to create a product that will best fit my target market's needs. Since I'm a writer and passionate about writing, I decided to create kind of a writing workshop specifically for teenagers, led by teenagers. I found the people who wanted to participate in the program through my Instagram account at Estelle Euphoria. At Estelle Euphoria has over 36,000 followers on Instagram, and it's where I post my art and writing. I found a group of about 20 teenagers who were interested in being in the pilot program, which went on for about 3 months. We met for an hour each week on Zoom, and we read aloud the poems that we've worked on over the week. We discussed each other's poems. We've discussed poems that were inspiring to us. And then we gave each other inspiration and writing prompts for the next week. Estelle Euphoria has also been really influential in the way that I've discovered my writing community. I created this writing contest that went on in the summer of 2020, the winter of 2020, and then most recently the fall of 2021, where I chose a first place, second place, and third place winners for art and writing and featured them on my Instagram and on my website. I also created this anthology called Lemon, Teenagers' Art and Writing Created During the Pandemic. And it's named Lemon because when life gives you lemons, what do you do with them? You have to make lemonade. But no. In this case of creative teenagers, you have to make art and writing. It's your way of processing and healing. It's your way of releasing the trauma that you have built up over this unprecedented event, which was the pandemic. And for me, the pandemic helped me generate this work of art called Genetics. It's an anthology, a creative portfolio of all the works that I've created over the pandemic, beginning with my freshman year up till now. I called it Genetics because it really is my DNA. It's my life story. After you read it, I feel like you know me intimately. You have built a connection with me that you couldn't have otherwise. It's my identity poured onto the page. It tackles heavy issues like mental health, queerness, the LGBTQ plus community, immigration, divorced parents, and so on. I was inspired to create it during the pandemic when I had more online writing workshops and I had access to more writing workshops because they had moved online. For example, I took a 5-day Writers Harbor workshop through Main Media Workshops that would have been in person and thus prevented me from attending it. But because it was virtual, I was able to attend the workshop taught by Ellen Bass, who is an amazing poet, and with 11 other wonderful women. And I generated so much poetry that has been included in this anthology. I also took a workshop with inaugural poet Richard Blanco through Hessler Creative and How Hill Farms, and he taught me that the personal is powerful, and that the personal is political, and that if you find the personal aspect of you that is powerful and can resonate with a lot of people, then you have created a transcendent poem, a poem that transcends boundaries, that transcends people, that creates a sense of universal similarity. And I just love his poetry. I love his poem, Looking for the Gulf Motel. That was one of the poems that we studied to find the transcendency of a poem. I also take a lot of workshops with Writopia Lab. Right now, I'm actually in a specific class for creating a creative portfolio. It's called a creative portfolio class, and it also has a lot of leadership opportunities in Writopia Lab, such as interning, helping younger kids with their own work. Also, the creative portfolio has Turning the Page, which is our social justice chapter of creative portfolio. We host roundtables discussing important issues such as racism and mental health during the pandemic. And we are also hosting a social justice poetry night where we are discussing generational trauma in poems, how poets use poetry to discuss generational trauma, and how we can use that poetry to learn and grow. And I think that poetry is important to me because it's healing. It's a release. It's a lot of heavy emotions that are building up inside of me that I release onto the paper, onto the page, onto the Google Doc, and I feel relief. And I think that poetry is healing. And I think that poetry is at its most powerful when it's not only healing for me, but when it's healing for others. And if my poetry heals people, then I've done my job. I also write a lot of political poems. How could I not, living in Washington, D.C., quite literally the nation's capital? I wrote a poem called To the Women of America, inspired after November of 2020 when the election results were announced. And I've also written a poem inspired by Ada Lamone's poem, A New National Anthem, called Multiple Choice, What is the National Anthem? And that poem won grand prize in the 16 Rivers Press Youth Poetry Contest. I'm going to do a reading of that poem Sunday, February 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern. It was one of the first poems that received a real response. People messaged me after reading it, "Oh my goodness, this is powerful. Thank you so much for writing this. This expressed exactly how I feel." And I felt shocked because I'd never seen such a response elicited from it. It was kind of one of my first serious forays into political poetry. And that just goes to show that when you're personal and you create a personal connection in your poetry, it creates a response. Lena Roy also taught me this important quote that I try to live by. Only when you are free to fail are you truly free. This Davidson Fellows Scholarship opportunity is my opportunity to put my work out there, to really show the world who I am and what my writing is. Thank you so much.